Welcome to the second in the Royal Philatelic Society of Canada's Collecting Journeys videos for YouTube. This is a series of videos with some of Canada's most important philatelists. And today we're very lucky to have Gray Scrimgeour with us. He is a native of Vancouver and received his Master of Science degree at the University of British Columbia. He then went to the University of Washington at Seattle for a PhD in biochemistry. His career took him and his wife Phyllis to La Jolla, California, where he worked at Scripps Clinic and Research Foundation. In 1967, he went to the University of Toronto, where he became a professor of biochemistry. He retired to Victoria in 1992, and for a decade wrote biochemistry textbooks. Like many of us, Gray collected stamps in his youth and put them away until his studies were completed and his family established. A friend introduced him to covers in the late 1960s. He became a member of the Postal History Society of Canada and has served on the PHSC board for 30 years and written many articles for their journal. Gray is also a member of the British North American Philatelic Society, Royal Philatelic Society of Canada, the 21 Club of Vancouver, the Pacific Northwest Postal History Society, and he has been active in judging and writing throughout much of his career. So welcome. We're really glad you're here, and thank you for taking the time to talk to us today.
Glad to do that.
Tell us about your family when you were growing up.
Oh, family life was pretty quiet. I had a sister who was 8 years older than I. It was the time just after the Depression, but Vancouver was not really waking up until 1941, late 1941. And there wasn't a lot of money around for collecting, and no one else in the family had been a collector of any sort. But a regular, comfortable time to grow up.
That's great. So you say nobody in your family was actually involved in collecting. Who got you started?
Oh, I imagine it was because one of the cereal boxes or something like that had a coupon for getting a Harris album, one of those paper bound ones. And in school, we were able to, from one of the other students, I could buy a few stamps from Garcelon Stamp Company and things like that. One
Yeah,
of the biggest things actually that got me started was there was a stamp store in downtown Vancouver called the New Stamp Store, owned by Fred Langer. And when I got to be 11 or 12 years old, I would go down on Saturday mornings, sit in the corner and go through the 3-cent and 4-cent books and pick out a few stamps almost every Saturday.
yeah.
Something you can't do these days easily.
It's actually really surprising to me. I teach a lot of young people, and they get virtually no mail with stamps on that comes into their house. And
Yes.
a lot of them don't even have any idea how to write a letter or do any of those things. So I was still lucky enough to have a stamp store in my town when I grew up. So I think both of us were probably pretty lucky in that regard.
Yes.
What types of things did you collect? Was it always Canada or was it worldwide?
No, it was worldwide when I was young. A lot of Trinidad and Tobago because my uncle lived there, and he would send envelopes and I'd cut the stamps off and soak them. But worldwide and Canada, of course.
Yeah. When would you say that you got serious about it? I mean, we all went through, I went through the period where I took stamps off things and pasted them into an album with glue, but when did you start to get more serious about it?
Oh, after I moved back to Canada from the United States, I would say probably about 1970, I started learning things, went to my first stamp auction and Marishes and so on. Just learning, watching and seeing what happened.
Yeah. Did you primarily collect Canada at that point?
Yes.
Yes, yes. So for you, throughout your philatelic career, has it been more about hunting for things or about the acquisition of them?
Actually, neither. It's the explanation or the analysis of the covers that really, yeah, the research behind it. And, looking at something, understanding where it came from and who it was going to, and figuring out the story. And
Yeah,
whether I don't know whether it's the ownership of the hunt, probably both.
yeah. Did you when did you meet Alan Steinhardt? Because you were involved in writing
Yes.
the collection about him. And so can you tell us a little about him and your experiences with him?
Oh, I'd be glad to. Uh, I first met him at the bourse that was held every second Sunday in downtown Toronto. Alan had a table there, and I got to know him sitting at his table. Going to his table was like going to an archive because he had material that nobody else had,
Mhm.
and he always had a box of new purchases that everybody wanted to look at, and we would sit and talk, and we got to be good friends. He would phone me quite often during the week and ask me questions or tell me things that he was hunting for. He was an amazing person. He had 75 agents around the world who did his bidding at auctions. And he read every morning, first thing in his mail, all of the catalogs that came in. And he had an immense mind. He had a mind that could retain all the details about things that he saw. I asked him, do you get many covers back more than once? He said, oh, I've had covers back 2 or 3 times. And he said, I remember everything and usually the price. He's a rather strong-willed and loud person.
Yeah.
Could seem overbearing to some people if they didn't know him. He didn't have paid advertising. His advertising was his personality.
Mhm.
And he had 2 lists he kept, his white list and his black list. And if you were in the white list, you were fine. If you were in the black list, you knew that if he mentioned that so-and-so was in his black list, you'd say, why is that? He would tell you, and I would try to explain the situation and get the person back on the white list for her. And that happened. I know several people that he said, you were right, I should have been mad at him. But a very strong personality. He spent virtually all of his time on postal history,
Mhm.
one way or another, or watching NFL football games on TV. You could hardly see on his television because it was covered over with smoke. But
Yes.
in later life, he gave up a lot of the smoking. And when we'd go on trips, he would smoke at most 3 cigarettes a day.
Mhm. Yeah.
An amazing brain and a very dedicated person and really knowledgeable on postal history.
Yeah. Who were some of the other legendary figures that you knew in those days?
One of the people that explained to me about stampless covers and how to handle them was Fred Stulberg.
Hmm.
I can remember buying a cover and he showed me, explained to me the markings, explained to me how to fold it, how to keep it flat and so on. And it was very helpful. Others, oh, I guess Fred Stulberg and Mike Miller with the school they gave on the judging for the RPSC. Other people, Cliff Guile, I learned a lot from Cliff and was in the car often being driven home from meetings with Alan Steinhardt and Cliff, and lots of others.
Sure, sure. I think that it was kind of the glory days of Canadian philately, which is one of the reasons which is one of the reasons I think this series is important because, You know, I never met Alan Steinhardt. It's interesting to speak with someone who did. You know, we all know about him, but it's interesting to hear about that. So tell us about the one that got away, the one thing that you really wish you hadn't passed on, or, you know, is there one thing or are there a couple things?
I could only remember one, and it was a stampless cover in the 1850s going to Winnipeg. And I read the message in it, and it mentioned the potential of a Fenian raid occurring on Manitoba. And I didn't buy it, and I should have. I had no idea that the Fenians considered a raid on Manitoba.
Yeah.
And of course, Nova Scotia and so on, they were important. I just thought and thought, should I buy it? And I should have.
Yes.
I've never seen it since. I don't know who found it.
Well, we're liable to find out now.
That's right.
Do you have any regrets in your collecting?
No, not really. No, that's
Yeah.
been a learning process.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I completely agree. You never know what's going to come. You never know what's going to come with this.
No,
I
that's
did
quite right.
I did an interview of a Belgian collector who said, yes, my collecting cost me my marriage.
Oh
And I
dear.
think that's a serious regret.
Yes.
So
You can't go overboard.
yeah, yeah, no, that's very true. So is there one thing that you would like to acquire, or that you wish you could acquire, that is unattainable, or is that not important to you now? Was there something at one point?
There's one now I would like to get. I don't know that it would be unattainable. They do exist. I have started collecting Japanese internment mail from British Columbia from the 1940s, 1942 on. And I would like very much to have a cover related to the New Canadian newspaper while it was operating in Vancouver for that short time before it was sent to the interior of BC.
Mhm.
I've got a nice little story made up to put together with maybe 6 or 8 other covers, but I don't have one from Vancouver yet. So I'm watching.
Yeah,
And I think I know where I could find one if I had to. Other
that's
than
right.
that, no, I can't think of any
Do you
that
do
I'm really burning to have.
sure? Do you still
Alan Steinhardt gave me the advice that he said, save up money just for that one that doesn't come along more than once in every 15 years. And yeah, those ones are important in anybody's collection.
Yeah, yeah, good advice, good advice. It's interesting how in the beginning it's all about the acquisition to kind of fill an album and do a lot of acquire a lot of stamps, and then all of a sudden you start to think, yeah, well, that's not so special. I'll wait for something that's a little bit more special. And for me, that's when it really gets interesting, you know.
Yeah, especially in postal history, you don't think in terms of filling an album.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
You,
Well,
you
and what
take
I
what comes along and analyze it.
exactly. Exactly. And it is nice also, especially today with things being so readily available to view on the internet. In a way, you almost don't have to own something. You know, you can acquire the knowledge about it without acquiring the piece.
Yes.
Yeah,
Save the scan and save the write-up.
exactly. And save the money.
Definitely.
Well, sometimes anyway. So do you still exhibit? Were you an exhibitor?
I have exhibited. I haven't exhibited recently. I usually try to have something in the Victoria local shows.
Mhm.
And I, no, I've only entered, only shown once internationally, and that was because Andy Cronin came and said, Gray, I'm going to South America. I need some collections to carry down. Lend me your Northwest Territories. He said, they wouldn't know what it is down there anyway.
Yes,
But
for sure.
yeah, and I've exhibited nationally quite a bit,
Right, right.
but not overly.
Yeah. Yeah, I enjoy exhibiting because it focuses my collecting and it forces me to dig deep into one area,
Yes.
which and I think, without being presumptuous, I think you and I are similar in the fact that it's really the the learning and the acquisition of knowledge about a particular subject that really is what makes me excited.
Yeah, I usually try and write up an article that includes it rather than showing an exhibit.
Yeah,
Write up an article and put it in the PHSC journal, or give a talk and have it recorded and
right,
put it on the website.
right. That's right. That's right. Well, I don't know if this is a question that you can answer or not, but what's next for you in your collecting?
Yeah, very straightforward at my age. That's selling,
Yeah, yeah,
and that will be a slow, and I've sold some collections already,
yeah,
and I slowly will sell more and more and keep my British Columbia postal history to last.
yeah, sure, sure. How does that feel when you sell it?
It's hard,
Yeah,
but if it goes to someone intact that has an interest in that field, you know that it's going to be carried on,
right.
and that's a nice feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for a lot of collectors, the feeling of your collection being broken up and lost is much harder than actually dispensing it.
Yeah, I don't think things will be lost. I think they'll be, I hope, cherished by other collectors,
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure.
and they'll have write-ups for them. And as for the 8 tubs of plastic boxes over there with covers in, I don't know what's going to happen to them. Things I sort through and pull out when I need them.
Yes. I'm very careful how I place my camera because I really would not want anyone to see in my stamp room that literally you can't get within 2 feet of any of the walls.
Ah,
I,
that sounds familiar.
I think so. I think
True
so.
collectors.
So if you were starting over and you were not collecting stamps, is there anything else that interests you that you would collect or that you do collect?
I probably would choose early black and white picture postcards of British Columbia.
Hmm,
I've got 3 series, small series, where I have most of the cards. I'd probably pick another 1 or 2 of them, different publishers, and I like the early black and white postcards rather than getting into the real photo or the color printed cards.
yeah, yeah. I think postcard deltiology in general is a really fascinating subject. I
Yes.
I did an article on the ships that carried the American athletes to the 1920 Olympics in Antwerp. And obviously, there's virtually no postal history at all. But when I started to dig, I discovered that there were a really good number of postcards that had to do with the ships and the period and who was
Yeah.
on them. And so it was really it was actually ended up making filling that out really beautifully. So it's
Yes.
a fascinating area of collecting, I think.
I like watching for Canadian cards that are used with the numeral issue of stamps
Hmm.
between 1898 and 1903.
Hmm.
They tell a good story.
Yeah,
Read a lot of them. They come up.
yeah.
I've got quite a few, but they're special to me.
All right. Well, is there anything else that you would like to share with us or tell us that's you think would be interesting?
Not particularly. I can't think of anything, but it's a wonderful hobby. A lot of good people in the hobby, and a lot of good dealers, and a lot of friends.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
we have a Zoom session on Tuesday mornings where anywhere from 9 to 15 of us get together, and there 3 are in England, 1 in Saskatoon, 1 in the United States and Washington State, others here in Victoria and across in Greater Vancouver. And I look forward to Tuesday mornings and an hour and a half or so of chatting with my friends.
Yeah. I'm of the opinion that as much as COVID was a horrible thing in terms of, the world and the general public, that it's one of the best things that ever happened to our hobby, because we've all learned to access this technology. I mean, you and I would not be having this conversation right now if it wasn't for what
Quite
we
right.
learned.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, Bob Stock out here in Victoria, he was very good at, he said, our family uses a Zoom account, let's use it for stamps.
Yeah.
And it's been extremely helpful.
Yeah, I think so. And because things can be recorded, they're also accessible to the non-joiner, younger side of the hobby. I'm not of the opinion that the hobby is in grave danger. I think that people just don't join the way that they joined when we were younger.
Right.
And with all the things that are available on the internet, you can actually attend everyone's meeting without actually ever meeting anyone or belonging to the organization.
That's exactly the feelings a number of us have out in Victoria. We're going through a process of joining the two larger clubs and changing the way things are done at the bourses. Bourses have now become a different name so that it is a better explanation.
Right.
And a lot of people are thinking, how can we update things to make things easier for non-collectors?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree. Well, and that's part of what we're trying to do here today. So anything else at all?
No, I can't think of anything more.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us. It's a great honor, and we all really appreciate all of your research and all of the things you've done to bring the postal history of Canada to life.
I feel very honored.
Well, thank you. And we do too. And so thanks for attending today. There'll be more of these videos coming. And if you're interested in joining the Royal Philatelic Society of Canada, you can find out more by searching rpsc.org. Thanks, everybody.